what industries are doing well, or rather what sectors are doing well and what sectors are falling behind?
I think, generally financial service, so IT is a global services.
Phenomena, yeah.
Services are generally doing well. Larger firms are doing well. Those who have access to credit, those have their own internal funds, they're able to invest. Or those who can tap international markets. See, because India's credibility has gone up, you will not believe. NTPC Green, yesterday I was talking to somebody, they have been able to raise funds abroad at 6%. After covering for currency, there is
Exchange.
hedging, exchange risk you can hedge.
Right.
After that, I think they are able to raise at 6%. International market.
Which is very low.
Very low for India.
Right.
India is BB, triple B minus rated country.
Which means that the interest generally given is higher
Much
rates.
higher for India. So those companies, government companies have done phenomenally well because direct government, one thing I can watch, I have not got a single phone call from anyone to make a loan or not to make a loan from the government. I've spent 3 years now. So government companies' governance has improved. They have done well. Banks have done phenomenally well. Their health has improved. Larger formal firms have done well because generally there is policy certainty and all of that. Who is getting hurt is the smaller firms because they are the ones. Extremely small are fine. Extremely poor, vulnerable because you have DBT, direct
You have
benefit
government
transfer,
schemes that help
government
you.
schemes now state governments are giving all kinds of, extremely poor also have done well because you have this 5 kg rice going rice or wheat, the Prime Minister Garib Kalyan Yojana. So there is no way all these hungry and all indices are bogus. And you can go and there is no way Indians can be hungry, There is so much thing going on. But an entrepreneur, a new entrepreneur who has an idea, who doesn't have collateral, who doesn't have big BAP to back up, that guy to start a business, despite all the claims, that has not improved as much as one would have loved to. And one big problem is access to credit. They need access to credit. And Mudra is not a solution.
Mudra is not a solution.
It has to be a market-based solution.
Right.
You have to create credit infrastructure. Your regulations has to change.
Right.
You have to have bureaus. I'll give a simple example. Credit bureaus only capture information about those who have access to credit. You need to have a system where, it was announced in the budget. I was delighted. If you remember 2-3 years ago, Finance Minister announced in the budget that she's going to have an information bureau. The whole idea is to have information about informal setup so that banks can see that and assess your credit and give you loans. Right? So we need to move towards that. We need to create credit infrastructure. Like NPCI was such a beautiful thing for payments. That is done wonderful. I don't think I'm not an expert on that, but we all know how well we have done. But on credit, lot needs to be done.
I understand the situation with policy and with banking and how important that is, how central that is for the health. But purely from an economical standpoint, has the manufacturing industry gotten better? Is that something? I'll tell you why I'm asking. My guess is that we need a solid manufacturing base out of India.
Yes.
I feel like we are entering a war-fueled time. Smaller and bigger explosions are going up in the world. And I think we need manufacturing self-sufficiency, one, to guard us against the cost of war. And two, to even accelerate our growth because demand will increase if war happens. Right? But people will need more things. I think too, where we are lacking behind very sincerely is infrastructure, because if war ever comes to us, we want our roads between the eastern and the western and the northern and the southern flanks connected very well. That also has an economic benefit. If trucks travel faster, goods travel faster, cost of transfer of goods goes down. And my view is we are doing very well on this telephone sort of mobile internet era. But we are missing a huge chunk in the middle with manufacturing.
Right.
Is that the case in your data? Have you found that to be true?
No, generally, compared to before, manufacturing sector has grown, as a proportion of GDP, it has increased slightly.
Right.
They're also organized. Defense, for instance. You will see drone, this company raising some money, IIT, Madras, some companies set up. These things were unheard of.
Right.
But they're also, again, smaller firms. Their health has not improved as much, especially post-COVID. Lot of smaller firms are yet to recover. Aggregate data masks a lot of things. When we say aggregate improvement and all of that, there is some stress at the small firm level which needs to be addressed. Those fundamental reforms that were going on. Labor laws, for instance. There was a proposal, they have passed a law.
Right.
That is something that has a tremendous potential to increase employment. shutting down a business is impossible in India if you follow the law. You need state government permission and all, beyond a point. No state government will ever give you permission if you are formal. You said, why don't we grow? Suppose you tell an entrepreneur that you invest, but you cannot shut down. Even if you lose money, you have to keep operating. Why will they put up all these manufacturing? And this problem is more for manufacturing.
Right.
Because all the labor unions and things is a problem. Services also, these rules apply, but professionals don't form unions and they don't go to court. So these IT firms are able to shut down, move and all that. Manufacturing, the big problem we have is labor laws. You can't shut down manufacturing. You can't fire people irrespective. So if you have that, what they're doing, they are use contract labor. And
that's how it works.
That may not be efficient. You may need committed labor specialized to work in your organization.
You may need skilled labor.
But if you have to depend on contract labor, because the reason you use contract labor is if you take permanent labor, you can't fire them. And they have made a rule. They have introduced a fixed term contract where the laws have been passed, but they have not implemented. So manufacturing, yes, I agree with you. Whereas I don't have too much views about strategic issues that you're talking about.
Okay.
I don't want to talk about things that I don't understand.
Sure.
Right? I'm very narrowly focused on banking. Whatever you say, eventually I'll come to banking.
I love that.
Because that's the only thing I know.
Right.
So,
ब्रो, अगर ये सुन के आपको मजा आया किसी भी एंड तक, अगर आप यहाँ तक देख रहे हो तो मजा आया ही, ठीक है? अपने आप से बात मत करो फालतू की. एक काम करो, सब्सक्राइब. Trust me.